when I read people's charts, or when I teach, like, I literally say, you choose your natal chart, and your natal chart is like your blueprint. It's like your barcode that you scan in order to understand why you're here, who you're here with, why you chose this time to be alive. Why did you choose this lifetime? Why did you choose this pattern? And you cannot escape the pattern unless you know what that pattern looks like. Because we think we're free, we think we have free will, but we are literally just walking patterns. And that's why the chart can tell you exactly what's going to happen, because we have such rigid structures. We think we are completely free and we do whatever we want, but we are literally just following a pattern.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today's guest is Mercedes Arnús Arraut, a longtime astrologer and founder of the Astral Method, which teaches the wisdom of the stars as a tool for consciousness awakening. In this mind-expanding conversation, we unravel the mystery of the zodiac signs, explaining that your birth chart is a blueprint of your inherited patterns which define your destiny, unless you become conscious of it. Mercedes reveals the fundamental connection between celestial movements and human experience through the law of correspondence. As above, so below. We also explore the astronomical chaos between 2026 and 2028, which is expected, linking technological innovation and global shifts to ancient cycles like the age of Atlantis. Get ready to simplify your understanding of the universe and learn how to read its language. Enjoy this conversation.
Mercedes, where should we begin? I was thinking, my God, you have so much to teach me. This is why I want to have this conversation. I guess maybe we'll start someplace a little more familiar for me before we venture into a lot of the things that I need enlightenment and information about. But so I want to settle this controversy, right? NASA says our view of the heavens has shifted, right? Which means the sign we've identified with our whole lives might not actually be our sign. Does that mean all our signs are wrong? What are the implications of that statement?
So that would be sidereal astrology. And that's why, I feel astrology is like such a vast topic, because we could be here for like ages, and we only get to the gist of it. But anyway, so of course, we are in constant movement, in constant evolution. And of course, our planet is not the same as it was 5,000 years ago, when we have the evidence of the first astrology written tablets. So the thing is that in sidereal astrology, they study, it's more connected to the astronomical positions of the actual constellations. So in sidereal astrology, they do take that into account. The most common astrology that's being used nowadays is Western astrology, which is originated in Mesopotamia, or back then in Samaria, and then being born fully in Greece with the influence of Egyptian culture. And this goes back to 1000 BCE. So a very long time from now. But in that time, they divided the celestial sphere into equinoxes and solstices. So we divide that sphere, that 360-degree sphere, into 4 exact points. Where back in that time, the constellations matched pretty well with that division. Nowadays, it doesn't anymore, and that's why in sidereal astrology, it would be more connected to the Vedic tradition, where they take into account sidereal astrology, which is more the astronomical exact placements. But in traditional astrology, they don't care about the exact positions of the celestial sphere, of the celestial bodies. They care about that exact division of the sky in between solstices and equinoxes, because then that sphere is divided perfectly in the point of maximum brightness or least brightness of daylight, and depending on which hemisphere, of course.
which one do you think is, do they both have their uses? Which one do you personally subscribe to and think is the most
Yeah,
important?
no, that's a great question. So I love a bunch of techniques from Vedic astrology, for example, and like sidereal astrology, but I use tropical Western and Hellenistic astrology because to me is the one that makes most sense because it is more based on the theory of the division of the sky in 12 perfect parts, taking
Mm,
into account solstices and equinoxes, and not so much in the actual position that is constantly shifting.
right, right, because it is constantly shifting. um,
Exactly. So it's like a lot more, I'd say it's like a lot more messy, and it's not so connected to the, I would say, to the basis and the foundation of the study.
this was not one of my original questions, but it always comes up when I'm thinking about the movement of the stars. What does astrology say about why the North Star is always in the same part of the sky? How does astrology explain that? Because
We have fixed stars in astrology.
yeah,
Throughout the zodiac, there's fixed stars from our perspective on Earth. Like for example, the Pleiades that fall in at 0 degrees of Gemini, which are one of the most studied constellations. Then we have Sirius. Sirius falls at 16 degrees of Cancer, and that's like fixed. So we have fixed stars around the
we
zodiac, and it's
do.
actually, and this is something that is more connected to Egyptian astrology, where back in the day, the Egyptians divided the sky based on when it was the time for each of those fixed stars.
Ah, that makes
Hmm.
sense. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't realize. Wait. I mean, I guess I did realize we have fixed star because I know about the North Star, but I didn't realize that Pallades and there was all these other candidates that also fall into that category.
Hmm. Like
That's,
Sirius is one of the most, or like Orion's belt could be also one.
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear you say that is like, well, we happen to have like direct relations to the beings in those constellations, and this human race. I mean, most people obviously maybe don't think like that, but that's what I think of. Like, when I hear that, I'm like, is that a coincidence? Is there such a thing?
Well, something that I do analyze when I read people's charts is seeing if they have any important placement, like their sun, their ascendant, their moon, anything connected to these fixed stars. Because at the end of the day, for example, if someone has the moon or even the point of past lives, which we consider to be the south node, in either of these fixed stars, of course, there is a life or there's a
Mm,
lesson, there's a teaching, there's family, even in these other dimensions connected to
hmm.
those fixed stars. And we even see, for example, people that have anything close to the 0 degree of Gemini, which is the connection to the Pleiades, we see them having like really light features,
Mm.
very blonde hair, very light skin, very light eyes, and it's like, oh wow, this is a Pleiadian
Wow.
kid.
I often think of that, and well, I try to conversate with it. Obviously, you can't just conversate with anyone about the concept, and like, the way that, we kind of, we let science explain our quote racial differences, our differences in appearance, and we chalk it up to evolution, and but what I obviously believe, maybe not so obviously, but what I believe is, like this is directly related to the hybridization program that created humans, and the reason why there's such a variety, in our skin tone and our features, and because now we've done a lot of science to say, okay, well, this is what comes with, this particular racial package, or avatar, if you will, and this is what comes with this one, the advantages, disadvantages, if you will, if there are any. I'm not saying one race is any. I'm just saying, obviously, like for people who were in the Caucasus Mountains, it was helpful for them to have a longer nose. You know what I mean? To warm the air, and the opposite is true of people growing up in that desert sun, in Africa. So I'm just, it's fascinating to me how people don't think of we just don't think of that. It's never really brought, we're not taught that, and people don't think about that. But I think that has a lot to do with, all the different racial types we have on this planet. Much more to do than, like, let's say, something like evolution. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah. Um, just throwing that out there for, food for thought.
Yeah, and something that's interesting to think about and to bring up is that depending on where you're born, you're also connecting to a DNA of dormant knowledge.
Yeah.
So, like, just for example, I was born in Spain because Spain was also one of the first countries that translated a lot of ancient knowledge on astrology into Latin. So that dormant knowledge was in my DNA
Mm,
somehow. And for example, if you're born in the United States, you're also connecting to dormant knowledge of ancient Amerindian cultures, for example.
mm.
Like, it's just
Wow.
something that we don't consider, but we are ancestors of that land. And what's the knowledge? What's hidden in that land that is in your cells, in your DNA, and that you can awaken just by being more present in your body and listening more to it.
Mm, yeah. There's so much to that statement. So much more you can become aware of if by being more present, by having some kind of practice that puts you into a meditative or flow state.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much information that our five senses deprive us of. Really, I mean, what they give us is fantastic. It's it's the best ride in town, but there's just so much more, as we know. So the zodiac signs, they have a lot of stereotypes, but what does it really mean to say that someone's like I'm a Leo or someone's a Pisces? Like, how are those human traits connected to the cosmos or to that constellation, if you will?
So, when someone's born under a certain zodiacal sign, under a certain like sun sign, for example, they it simply means that in the moment of their birth, from our perspective on Earth, the sun was illuminating that area of the sky belonging to, in your case, the sign of Leo. From our perspective on Earth, like for example, the sign of Leo is the moment of the year where the sun is brightest from the northern hemisphere, which is where astrology was originated. So it's the moment where the sun is shining brighter. There's the most light. There's people are out. It's warm. It's hot. It's like fun. There's life because
Mm,
there's sunlight. So the sign, like people being born under the sign of Leo, are going to embody those traits because it is in the collective subconscious.
see.
And at the same time, people that are born under the sign of Leo, or people that are born when the sun is traveling through that area of the sky, through that sign, at the same time, immediately, it means that the earth is traveling through the opposite sign.
Mm.
So they're going to embody also the shadow of the opposite sign.
Oh, so
So in
what's
this
so?
case, for example, Aquarius would be yours, which is new technologies, online, YouTube, everything that has to do with media and like um
Hmm.
reaching communities, telling the truth, speaking the truth, being like
What?
a someone who just shines a light whether people are ready or not into
Mhm.
things that were hidden,
I've been told
just
that I
to
do
make a
that.
statement into the community and share the light with the community.
That's crazy you say that. My barber was just telling me that in no uncertain. She wasn't quite so polite about it. Well, she was giving me a compliment, but she was saying whether you hit them whether they're ready or not. Like you. 'Cause she's watched a lot of my videos, and some of them are more conspiratorial than others, let's say.
Mhm.
But they all contain a lot of truth, and it's hard. Sometimes that's hard for people to sit through when they've been told something is one thing their whole life, and then they learn the truth about it. It can become uncomfortable, But I always think, like, if we're going to truly change and evolve, then we first have to learn the truth about ourselves, because we don't know who we are really. I feel like it helps to know who you actually are if you want to change into something that is a greater expression of that.
That's
And
literally what I say when I read people's charts, or when I teach. Like, I literally say, you choose your natal chart, and your natal chart is like your blueprint. It's like your barcode that you scan
wow.
in order to understand why you're here, who you're here with, why you chose this time to be alive. Why did you choose this lifetime? Why did you choose this pattern? And you cannot escape the pattern unless you know what that pattern looks
Mm,
like, because
um,
we think we're free, we think we have free will, but we are literally just walking patterns. And that's why the chart can tell you exactly what's going to happen, because we have such rigid structures. We think we are completely free and we do whatever we want, but we are literally just following a pattern. And there's this sentence by Jung, Carl Jung, that I actually say a lot. That is like, it says, "Until you make conscious the unconscious,
mhm.
it will rule your life, and you will call it destiny."
Oh, that is one of my favorite sayings of his.
I know, I know.
And it is often the subject of my conversations, my live streams, and it's the way I've learned I can be of most service to people through the journey that I've taken in going through many years of painfully realizing the patterns I was stuck in and then breaking free of them, which is always a process. But my God, you couldn't have said it any better. We are walking patterns. We really are. And it's like if you want to get to the bottom of them, it's the only way to change. It's the only way you're going to change. So I'm always amazed how my podcast guests find me and how I find them, and I'm always amazed at the synchronicities that are revealed the moment I start talking to them. And this is already like obvious to me how we ended up in a conversation. So it's exciting. But
Mhm.
so like there are dudes like me, maybe not quite, I'm not quite this bad, but who think of horoscopes as like, okay, like what, like they put, they take no stock in it, but
Yeah,
everyone
like, what is
does
this
have.
bullshit, right?
Yeah, like okay, I'm not going to leave the house today.
Uh-huh.
Like guys are more typically like this than women, but you know, everyone has a star chart, right? Like, what is a star chart?
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, your star chart, natal map, natal chart, astral chart, however you want to call it, is capture like a screenshot on how the celestial sphere was looking from your exact moment and time of birth, from the exact place that you're born in. So in this specific moment, we have this screenshot on when you take your first breath from that specific place, and then that is your blueprint. And it's really cool because it is actually a pattern. There's a grid, there's an image, there's a dance, there's a connection in between all of those celestial bodies. And this is the moment that your energy decided to be born under. And it's like, why? And then if you understand also the numerology of your birth, it's very similar. It like works alongside with
Mm,
astrology, because at the end of the day, astrology is, and what I like to teach it as, is a mirror, just by merely a law of correspondence, and the hermetic law of correspondence, as above, so below. So people think that things happen because of planetary aspects or moons, eclipses. But the truth is that the the celestial sphere, what happens outside of our planet, is pretty much a reflection of what's happening inside.
mm,
So we read astrology, or like the way I read astrology and what I like to teach is that we are studying a reflection of what's happening in our planet, and at the same time, as macrocosmos, microcosmos, it's what's happening inside of ourselves. So it's an opportunity to get to know ourselves better. That's why, to me, like, I couldn't emphasize enough how I feel everyone should learn astrology, because at the end of the
mm.
day, it's a way to read what's happening on Earth. It's a way to understand the process, the cycles, um, the motion of the planet and the influence of everything that's going through the planet. And just like we feel Mother Earth is Gaia is alive and it's a conscious being,
Hmm.
so are the other planets.
Oh
Even
yeah.
though there's like maybe not humans walking around Mars yet, uh
Or
there is,
anymore.
or anymore, right? But I do feel there's something to that. Maybe we'll talk about that
Okay.
later. But still, it's a conscious being. So
Certainly.
how how can people not feel that there is a connection between the planetary movements and it having a resonance, like inside
Mm.
our planet as well, simultaneously?
Yeah. I feel like some people are so, I don't hesitate to use the word grounded, but I don't know how else to, I mean, not grounded in like a good sense of the word, like, take your feet, put your bare feet in the grass and, you know, do some grounding. I mean, like some people are so kind of plugged into a survival mentality because of the nature of their jobs and because of the, their socioeconomic status. And it's just hard for them to even begin to contemplate some of the most important things I think, like you, people should be contemplating and learning about, and that's another conversation because I always teach people like that's deliberate, everybody. Like you understand that's why things are the way they are, so that you don't have time to stop and ponder the heavens. You understand? Because you might start to figure out a lot of things that don't make sense if you do. Like why? Who owns the planet? Why are we paying rent to live on a planet that we were born on? Like I don't,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
simple things like that. If people had a little more time to think, but
And yeah, yeah, going back to that pattern that we were talking about, that I got a little carried away.
no, no, it
When-
was great.
but I feel that if people become aware of why, or people could question themselves more, like, why am I here? Why did I choose this? Uh, like even my name, my date of birth, what's behind it? Why did I choose to be born under certain planetary alignment that corresponds to a certain era in this in our planet, right? And in our solar
Right.
system. Like, why were we chose to be born now, that there's AI and that there's a lot more freedom of speech, when back in the day this would have been impossible and we would have been burned just for bringing up the topic of astrology, or like even considering as something that we could share openly with the public, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So it's questioning the why of everything. And the good thing about astrology is that we can see all of that just in your natal chart, just in that screenshot.
Wow. So would you say that a star chart defines a person's destiny?
It's not that it defines it, is that a person's destiny is already defined. And the chart just shows that.
Ah.
Because every person is born with a DNA, with a lineage, with an ancestral line, and they are just an heir to that lineage. So there are patterns within patterns within patterns, and we just inherit it all. Same as we inherit DNA, we don't have any new DNA. It's the DNA from dad, from mom, mixed up together, and there's stuff that happens with that DNA and based on other ancestors that share that DNA with us. It's the same here. We inherit a bunch of patterns and we decide to be born under a certain pattern, a certain planetary grid, so that we can embody a bunch of traits that our ancestors couldn't even handle, or us in other timelines couldn't solve, and we come here to solve it or move through them. But if we do it unconsciously, we're just running right through the pattern. We're like walking or driving through that highway that's already written. There's nothing new.
Right. And you can't, I don't think you can maximize your destiny if you have no idea what it is. Or like if I mean, I guess one way or the other, you're going to be able to get to the finish line, but I don't know. I feel like obviously most people are sleepwalking. Let's just be realistic. Most people
Absolutely.
are just, they have no idea that they're a set of patterns, that they're doing literally the same thing they did yesterday, every day, the same thoughts,
And
the same
even
behaviors.
us, like the
Yeah.
people that we question each other daily, that we work on things daily, that we make such a
Yeah.
big effort
True.
of being super conscious. Like breaking free of the unconscious pattern is extremely challenging, because
It
even
is.
what you didn't think it's a pattern
It's
too.
bad. No, I know.
So
It's
we're like, okay, maybe just become aware of the pattern, and even though you're trapped in it, try to understand it, and not so much try to break it,
right.
but try to embody it with consciousness and awareness so that it shifts with love.
Yes. That makes all the difference, I think, because to become aware of it is essentially to, forgive yourself for everything that has happened, and be present from this moment on and move on with love. If you could kind of sum it all up, breaking the habit of being yourself in a sentence, it's like, it's obviously not quite so simply done, but it is I think, the only hero's journey left to take on this, in this life, for me anyway. In my opinion, it's the most important one. It's the reason why I'm talking to you. I'm sure it's the reason why you talk to so many people. But so ancient people built, like, well, we covered this a little bit, as far as humanity being kind of purposely led away from this connection. So I want to talk a little bit about, because, for centuries, the church celebrated mystics and miracles, right? Or saints. And I grew up Catholic. Fortunately, I grew out of it.
Same.
So, oh, you did.
Mm-hmm.
So it, like, why was astrology heresy? What was the thought behind that?
Mm-hmm. So pretty much it started with the Emperor Constantine, who decided to change absolutely everything, modify the Bible, and just control everything, so that it was a way to gain power, pretty much
Mm,
power over the population. And there's nothing that seeds power more than fear, and
that's
make
right.
people fearful. So in a way, it made people be afraid of anything that was not connected to what was being uh something that could control the
Yeah.
masses, right? But this is only, like, I would say, like 1,000, like 1,400 years ago.
Right.
Before that, like, astrology was like really well known, and it was
Yeah.
something that kings would have, like, and would even like sponsor colleges and
Hmm.
students of astrologers. And astrologers would send to the king notes daily on forecasts on the planets, and what would happen to him, like daily horoscopes.
Hmm.
And every court had astrologers, of course, and it was all based on astrology. um but then, of course, with all the being born, like the religion being born, Christianism being
Hmm.
born, and the need for power, the need to organize society a little more, anything, everything and anything that was outside of Catholicism and Christianism was banned.
Right.
So it's
And
not only astrology, it's literally anything that would defy the
wow.
belief. And of course, astrology was based on every planet was an embodied god.
Mm,
So imagine
yeah.
that. Like, of
Big,
course, it
big
was going
problem.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, big problem. Like, no, you cannot believe that there's other gods. The only God is my God, right?
Right.
So it's Jesus, and you're not going to believe in anything else, which is completely different to what Christianism was
Yeah.
originally. Yeah,
Yeah.
Christianity was its original base. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you believe it or not, and there's many theories about this, but Christ was or Jesus, if it existed, it was for sure someone who understood all the planetary energies. And of course, it was
Absolutely.
connected to the journey from Egypt, where a bunch of the astrology we have nowadays was born as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, I know it.
Hmm.
It's, it was, people don't understand that organized religion was essentially the first government, the emperor and
It has harmed us so much as a society.
gravely, it's a poison pill, and
Mm.
I agree with you. And I often get in trouble talking about how I feel about religion.
Hmm.
But,
And bear in mind, we're talking about religion, not people's beliefs.
that's right. We're talking about specifically
Hmm.
organized religion, particularly at least two of the three Abrahamic religions. And it's hard, you can't really leave any of them out. Anything that becomes so dogmatic and rigid and fear based, I have a problem
And
with,
guilt
guilt
based. That was the
ridden.
big,
Yeah.
big thing about Catholicism, the Catholic guilt.
Oh,
If you are
yeah.
not good, if you don't follow these rules, if you don't do this, then you're bad, and then you will be punished.
Yeah. And that kind of thinking will make you sick. It'll make you, turn you into a coward. It'll
Yeah, it'll
limit
make you
everything you
weak.
do in this life, you know? Mhm.
Anything where you project, at the end of the day, God as this entity or this being far outside of yourself, it's going to weaken you
Yes. In
because you're going
every
to feel
way.
weak and you're going to feel God is outside of you instead of feeling like it's your fractal of it.
That's right. And for people who are prone to superstition and to some of these fear-based dogmatic beliefs, regarding sin and the devil and
Mm.
all this stuff, like understand that is your fear and your belief in those concepts which make them real for you, because God made you in its image and you have the spark of the divine creator right within you. So when you make these ideas and you digest them and you make them part of your patterns or belief system, then they're going to be real for you, until you decide and believe something otherwise. But you're creating an energetic connection to those concepts, which is going to bring things of that vibration to you: more fear, more quote sin, more stuff of the devil. I just tell people all the time, like, look around you, man. You know what I mean? Like, just go out and look around. Do you see any of that? Is there any sign that any of that is real? Nature shows us everything we need to see. I think, as above, so below. It's all reflected for us. But
And the
um,
reason why religions have worked so well is because it's very comfortable. It's
mhm.
very comfortable to believe what everyone has taught you to believe and not question anything. Because when you start to question yourself, when you start going down that rabbit hole, nothing is the same. And you start to realize a deep, dark, and really enlightening truth that is very scary for most people to see.
And it's easier to have answers than be in the unknown, or at least for most people. I mean, like 5
Yeah.
billion people on this planet identify with a religion. That's wild to me. I
Because
mean,
it's comfortable. Because
yeah,
it's comfortable. It's easy. Just tell me what to believe and I'll buy it. And it's
right,
perfect. For example, I feel that Buddhism, for example, is a really beautiful religion to
right.
follow. It's like, even though it's an organized religion, I still feel that it has so much knowledge. Even
Yes.
the Bible has so much knowledge too, but it's all encrypted in symbolisms and
Yeah.
codes and
And they
not
hid the good
exactly
stuff.
how exactly. But for example, Buddhism has so much knowledge, for example, about death, meditation,
Yes.
the power of meditation, like enlightenment. So I
Hmm.
feel that it's not that religion is bad, but probably Catholicism is one of the one of the worst ones just
Yeah.
because of how it was so forced on
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
Especially
And,
because we are born under that religion. Like we both grew up Catholic. I
yeah.
went to a Catholic school. I
Me
did
too.
like everything.
I was an
And
altar
I've
boy.
yeah, same. I was
Hmm.
singing in church, like of
Hmm.
course. But it's interesting, even though it has really good values and this is beautiful, especially in America, I feel the values of the church are a lot better than in Europe. I feel in Europe
Yeah.
they're still very connected to the past and all that
Mm,
density of the previous
right.
century. But here in America, at least, there's like a lot more light connected to the church, at least because of the communities, all the singing, and
Yeah.
it's more like pastors just like giving their speech about life and about their vision. In Europe, is a lot more hardcore.
Wow. I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting. Um, yeah, there's a community aspect to it. And there are some, don't get me wrong, there are some pastors and priests who have a greater understanding of the nature of reality than others, and it comes out in some of their sermons and the way that they have brought their own understanding of spirituality to religion, I think can be helpful for people. But overall, I think it's, like it's a poison pill. I think that it was inspired in the worst way. Like, they know that people are generally positive, that we're geared more towards good than we are towards the negative. So how do you get everyone to think and act a certain way? So you wrap it up in this pill of salvation. Here you go, or damnation. Your choice. You know, um, like God gave you free will. Don't choose the wrong thing, or you're going to burn in hell. Like what? Wait, what? uh, how is that
And
free
and
will?
we see this even happening nowadays in the world.
Yeah,
Like and with AI, like we're taking humanity to a point like of us thinking that we have so much freedom that
yeah,
we're losing it with our actions. And at the end of the day, technology is going to
yeah.
be God, or is already God.
And it's that they're using technology to literally steal our freedoms right out from under us. And people are so enamored making fake videos of dolphins kissing sharks that no one's paying attention.
Mm. But at the
Uh,
end of the day, we are also part of that. So it's not that they, like, no one's creating this. We are creating
yeah,
this because seeing the truth for some is still so difficult to digest that we look for
yeah.
evasion and escape mechanisms so that we don't have to use our mind, to the point that now we have ChatGPT to think for us. Like, I don't even have to think. Like, it'll
Yeah.
just tell me anything that I want to hear. It might not even be the truth, and that's what's crazy.
No, it's quite literally, it's often not the truth. People don't understand. ChatGPT is an extension of the status quo's little index. Like they want people. If you ask any particular question about something that has political controversy surrounding it, you're going to get the canned answer. You're not going to get the truth about. I mean, the only cool thing about ChatGPT is I found like maybe two people, maybe three people who could do this really well. They know how to use its parameters to get it to admit when it was saying
Wrong.
things that are false, and
Sure.
also getting it to admit when logically then this is the only conclusion that we can come to. Is that right? And then
Yeah.
it's interesting, but there's so few people who know how to do that. And then, of course, people comment on the videos like, I asked ChatGPT that, and that's not the answer I get. I said, yeah, because your ChatGPT is programmed to lie, and hers is programmed to tell the truth. She has a bunch of parameters put into that thing,
Like,
which,
people tell me that they use ChatGPT for astrology. I'm like, do it at your own risk.
yeah,
Literally, because it makes up so much bullshit. It's
it does.
insane. I've tried it so many times just to check, be like, okay, let me see. Like, I'm curious to see what
Literally just make stuff
it
up.
can get.
Like,
Literally, like, I can ask him about lunations. Like, it makes stuff up. Like,
yeah,
it's like, where did you get this data from? Like,
yeah.
I still wonder. Like, I don't even know.
No,
Um,
it's true. Like I
but
asked ChatGPT.
astrologically, this is even gonna get worse. This is
Mm,
just starting.
wow.
We're in an age that is being mirrored. It's a mirror in time to the age of Atlantis. So it's the downfall of a civilization for the bad use of
Technology.
technology and any other science that
Hmm.
is dangerous if not used consciously and with caution.
Yeah. Do you think
Hmm.
that? So I talked to Wendy Kennedy the other day. Have you ever heard of Wendy Kennedy? She channels the Palladians.
Okay.
Well,
No, I mean,
among
I
others.
live in my own astral
Yeah,
bubble, so sometimes I.
I understand. She always says that the Palladians tell her that we're past the tipping point. That like we apparently there was a line drawn in some linear sand. Whereas if they can make it past, like, let's say 2012, then we won't hit the flood button. But if they screw up this and this by then we're just going to reset everything and we'll start over again, new civilization. What are the stars? What do your readings tell you about that? Are we past the tipping point, or do we still have a lot of bailing to do if we're going to keep the ship from sinking?
Both. Both.
Both. Okay.
So astrologically and energetically, now 2026, 2027, and 2028 are hardcore years. They're years like what like things are going to happen, like things that we haven't seen happen before. And they're things that are sort of like beyond our control, other than crazy technology innovation, just the fact that in 2023 ChatGPT was born, like
Mm.
AI was born. This is the code of Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto entered Aquarius. Pluto is generational. Um, and it entered Aquarius for the first time in 2023, right
Mm.
when AI was launched or discovered or promoted, whatever. And this is just like was the gist of it. And now in 2026, that's when that energy gets triggered once and once and once again and again and again. So 2026 and 2027 are the craziest years we've seen so far in
Yeah.
in the past like hundreds and hundreds of years. So we're down to see some crazy shit happening with technology, with solar flares, climate craziness.
UFOs.
Don't even open that kind of worms, but yeah, big time. It's
Oh,
all
I thought.
connected
Yeah.
to opening like our perception, like comets, meteorites, like all of that. Like it's
Three Eye
just
Atlas.
about to get started.
What are your
We're
thoughts on
down
three
for
Eye?
a journey.
We're definitely in for. I'm excited personally, um, because I think regardless of the spin that they're going to put on whatever it is they roll out, the human race typically finds a way into, like, oh, wait a minute, this is what actually happened, and this is so now it usually comes with more knowledge. And I think we're at the tipping point with the UFO cover up and how long it's been going on, where they really can't, they're losing control on a daily basis of, there's a massive accumulation of energy that has been bottlenecked for so long, and it's coming out. The question is, will they be able to manipulate it as it comes out enough to keep their control agenda?
Distractions.
Yeah. Or will the truth come out and be a liberating, I think, and it will be eventually either way. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of people and talk to a lot of people in the disclosure movement, who are fighting on every side of it, and it's like it's just constantly being hijacked for fear, just like everything else, for control. But anyway,
What we
so
struggle with nowadays is not missing information, is the excess of information. And
yeah.
that's what people play with. It's like, okay, this will just go undercover, not because it's hidden, because obviously nothing can remain hidden anymore. Like we have social media, we have technology to an extent that it's crazy. So the way to hide stuff is to overload. It's not hiding,
Yeah.
it's give you so much and so
Hmm.
many things happening. And that's why the war and what the war was about. Like
Yeah.
no one, very little people from the Western world were there at the war, and still it was like a worldwide thing. And it's a
Hmm.
war that has been going on forever. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years, that region of the planet has been in war, has been in conflict. And
Yeah.
yet it's something that only in the last couple of years we've seen it explode as
Yeah.
a lot. And it's not only because of the war that was going on, but because it's of interest to the world.
Yeah.
Because they need a lot of stuff happening so
That's
that
right.
what's going on deeply is not being seen.
Mm-hmm. And they're willing to do just about anything to keep that going, to keep that, that distraction going, whether it be a health crisis, lockdowns, assassinations, hurricanes, quote, wildfires that melt cars and not trees, whatever it may be. They've shown they are not going to hesitate to take advantage of the ignorance of the general public and foist these different things on them, and
It's not
pretend like,
only ignorance, I'd say. It's more that not everyone wants to know, and that's okay.
yeah, that's true.
Like, not everyone wants to be so aware. People just want to be here, be happy. Don't give me shit.
No,
Like,
it's true. You're right.
I just want to go on with my day, have fun, enjoy your life, peace. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's okay. And it's not good or bad. It's just like someone just wants to live a simple life, have them live a simple life. It's not a
I
big
agree.
deal.
I accept that. I have friends like that. Sometimes I'll just start talking and they'll be like, I'll just look up at them and they'll be like, I'm just a simple man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
And
like,
that's
nah,
totally fine.
and I love that about them,
That's why
I-
us crazy people do the other work.
Exactly.
So that we're perfectly compensated in a peaceful society. If we were all
Yes.
so intense, life wouldn't be great.
I have a question for you. So, and
Mhm.
this is something I've always wondered about, since I learned about astral projection, like the difference between dreaming and astral projection. Like I've had dreams where vivid dreams where I'm often flying. It's like one of my favorite things to do and my
Mhm.
favorite dreams to have, Some of them are a lot more vivid than others. Some of them I think are more symbolic, like I have a recurring dream where I'm having trouble flying until I find what I'm missing and then I can fly. And sometimes that's music. Sometimes it's like, it's just something I realize in the dream and then I have my ability to fly back. But what's the difference between like astral projection and dreaming? Is there a way we can know?
So, it's very interesting that you bring this topic, and it's like really like, whoa, the fact that you bring it to me, because it's not that I specialize, but the reason I created my program, my astrology program, is to bind astrology with dreaming. So it's one of my areas of expertise, and I don't think you knew.
Oh, I didn't know that. No,
Yeah,
wow.
that's why I'm like, wow, he's already channeling. He feels it. Because something that we can read with astrology, and I'll get back to your question in a second, is that it can tell us when we are more connected, or when we have more chances of having lucid dreaming, for example, and prepare for those nights so that we go to bed earlier, we eat a little less, and we follow that astral calendar, or we are more aware of that important lunar moments. The moon rules our subconscious and our dreaming, and like take advantage of that. So, and also because what I teach, like it's pretty crazy to say this, but I teach in my dreams. Like I teach in
It's
real
not
life,
crazy at all.
but I also have I have an academy in my dream world. Like I teach there, and I connect to my students here in the physical world as well as in the dream. So this is my purpose, transcending physical reality, so that when I die, I continue doing the exact same thing with the same people, and
Nice.
we find each other in multiple timelines to connect to knowledge and illumination. But anyway, you were asking about like, can you repeat the question? Sorry, I
Yeah,
got a
I
little
was
carried
asking
away.
the difference between dreaming and astral projection, and
Oh,
if we're doing
mhm.
one in one thing, like how do we know we weren't? How do I know I wasn't astral projecting in that one dream I had that I wrote down that was so vivid and amazing? I could feel the wind in my
Mhm.
face. And,
I
how do
feel
we
this
know?
is just the mind. Like
Yeah.
the mind needs to know and control absolutely every experience and put a tag on it.
True.
But our human mind is like completely opposite to the experience that happens in our dream world. Like our
Mm.
human mind is what falls asleep for us to be able to dream. And then
Yeah.
when we wake up, our human mind is like, okay, was that an astral projection or was that a dream? You know. You
Yeah.
know when you've had a lucid experience and a lucid dream. That is your confirmation. At the end of the day, astral projecting is just almost like a tag. Okay, is this an
Yeah.
astral projection? Of course. If you have a lucid dream, a lucid experience, and you are aware that you're dreaming in the dream, then that's an astral projection.
Hmm.
If you don't have awareness that you're dreaming in the dream, then it's not.
Right. Right.
So
And
you need a
obviously,
certain degree of awareness for it to be
yeah,
an astral
of kind of
projection.
conscious
Mm.
control almost,
But
and
lucid dreaming is a little different.
mm. How come some people like lucid dreams so often, and people like me, I can't like stumble my way into a lucid dream anymore to save my life. It's been so long since I had a lucid dream. Um,
Because you already like, so lucid dreaming and like having vivid and lucid dreams, honestly, it's more like an initiation phase, mostly for people. So when you're in an initiation and when you're starting your spiritual journey, you have an expansion of consciousness, like an awakening experience. So your unconscious is like a door that opens up to everything that's new and to like awakening, what we would call an awakening moment. So
mm,
that's when you're more when it's more likely for you to have a lucid experience. For
mm,
example, when someone who you know dies, your consciousness goes like expands,
yeah.
and then you have more lucid events. You need to have some sort of consciousness awakening
Mm,
or conscious moment that shocks you in your life, like someone close to you dying or you going through some crazy experience, and then
yeah.
your like your universal mind or your spirit opens up to greater
Hmm.
experiences. But if
Yeah.
you're in your day-to-day life and you're comfortable and in a
Hmm.
routine, it's like very difficult to have those because
Yeah.
you don't have that activation that
Right.
awakens you, right? Unless you talk or you go through topics that are really, really awakening. But in your case, like you, this is your job, so you do this for a living. So there's like very little things that could like shock
Yeah.
you enough to have a consciousness awakening
Yeah.
experience already.
Um, yeah, because I've had more than one already, but what I have been doing is like I'm rereading an old book by Jane Roberts, Seth Speaks, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
Hmm.
but he talks at length about dreams and makes suggestions about how you can kind of help yourself remember them, and I've noticed that since I have been remembering more of my dreams since I started rereading that and following some of his advice about how to remember more of your dreams in the morning when you wake up. Because my whole problem was like, I know I dreamt, but I couldn't remember for the life of me if I didn't get up in the middle of the night and write it down. But
It's crazy. That's exactly what I teach. So it's so funny you're bringing this up and you didn't even know it.
no, no.
Yeah. I
So
can give you
so
some techniques too to remember your dreams. It's
oh,
actually
awesome.
something I do with all my students and clients. And
Maybe I should
something I
just
do
become your student.
recommend. You would love it, absolutely.
Yeah.
So dreaming is the most important thing to remember, like the most.
Wow.
And it's something very complex to remember because our mind is programmed to take us outside of anything that's not going to be like useful this
Yeah.
day and grounding you and making sure that you're up to date with what's going on in your physical daily life. However, what happens in our dreams is a direct door to our unconscious, which is our pattern, our program, and multiple other timelines. And it's a door to who we truly are in essence.
Hmm.
Because when we die, we are that same person that's
Right.
dreaming. So, in order to remember your dreams, something that I teach and that I practice myself, I always recommend having an some sort of notepad or notebook where you can write your dreams throughout the night. I know it's very difficult, but I promise you it's so rewarding, because sometimes when you wake up like at 3 or 4 a.m. or
Yeah.
you have to go to the bathroom, whatever, like it's just so annoying having to get that notepad and write it down, or have your notes in your iPhone or
Hmm.
iPad or whatever, just open and writing it down. But it's the more you remember them, the more you remember them. It's like a
Yeah.
muscle. The more you go to the gym and work out, the easier
Right.
it's going to be to work out. So it works very similar. Or the more you meditate, the easier it is to meditate. It's like
Hmm.
very, very, very similar. So when you wake up, or when you, like, whenever it is throughout the night, or even if it's in the morning, the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, where was I just at? What feeling do I have left in my body?
Mm.
What state is my mind at? What do I just, like, what did I just do? What's the smell? What's the scent? What's the feeling that I have left? And then you start pulling little symbols, little codes, little feelings. And then
Mm.
once you get the thread of something, then you can pull it back.
Mm.
So you just
Yeah.
need a certain feeling, smell, code, vibration, symbol that you had just seen in order to grab it, and then you can start remembering a lot more.
Yeah. And that's the only time I ever remember them, like during the day. Something will, and it's rare, but something will happen, and I'll be like, oh, and I'll remember at least part of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one little thing or a symbol, or I'll think of something. I'll be like, hey, wait a minute. And then it'll all start to come back to me. But yeah, my
And
dream.
dreams speak in a different language.
Mm,
It's the language of dreams. So we need to learn to interpret them.
yeah, because the way I understand it is, you're so many dimensions of reality that our consciousness visits in dream states, all these different like aspects, and for different purposes. But in the end, what the only thing that we can do, well, the only thing that we can do, at least physically with our brains, is try to physicalize what we experience, what we saw, in a way that can be interpreted within the confines of our imagination, and sometimes, um, that's why dreams often, I think, don't make any sense. Like, wait, because we're trying to interpret a language that is not necessarily, consciously, that we're fluent with consciously.
It's like someone talking to you in a language you don't understand. And you're living in a world where people talk a different language, but you just need to learn that language. And you
Right.
learn that language by making an effort every night. Because our dreams are usually connected to things that happen to us 72 hours before the dreams, or 72 hours forward to the dream.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So, yeah, and in some cases it has to do with like for example, I do like also predictions through my dreams, and teach also dreaming practices. So it's connecting to, for example, something that will happen in the future, but that is already being like being so in the being like planted in that specific moment
Mm.
that you're
Wow.
having the dream. So
Yeah.
sometimes you can see the future, like far, far future in your dreams, but usually it is because you are receiving that in that exact moment. There's a blueprint sort of like being created for that event to happen in the future.
Right. That's definitely resonates a lot with me.
Mhm.
So, if humanity could remember one truth about our relationship to the cosmos, what should it be?
Mhm. More simple than as above, so below, that
I
we are
mean,
the cosmos itself. That
well,
would be the most simple and honorable response. Sometimes we want to overcomplicate ourselves, but I think going to the most basic and simple knowledge, especially nowadays, that there's so much knowledge and so much information out there. But I would say just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like simplify everything as much as you can.
Yeah.
But to give you like a cooler response, because that would be my
Right.
my
Right.
honest response, as in like, nah, just like not trying to impress anyone or sell astrology to anyone, but
Right.
it is a way for us to communicate and for us to read the language of the universe, the language of our solar system. And we are our solar system. We are part of something greater than ourselves. And the solar system is now going through the Kuiper belt, our solar
Right.
system, which is a belt of photons that activates, triggers, and glitches everything that's going through that belt. So as we go through that, we are about to experience big shifts and big
That sounds
awakenings.
Mercedes, tell everyone, including me, where we can sign up to become one of your students and where we can find you on across the video and social media platforms.
Thank you. Of course. You can find my academy at academy.theastralmethod.com. You can just Google theastralmethod.com and you'll have access to my academy as well. And you can find me on YouTube and social media with the Astral Method. Thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Mercedes, thank you so much. I learned so much. I'm definitely going to look into your, like, having a reading and learning more, because
It's definitely fun. It's definitely a journey.
This is the most interested I've ever been in the subject. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. We'll be in touch with you when this is going to come out, and we'll cut some clips for the social media.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.